All right, this is Public Art Advisory Committee, Monday, March 20th at 4:30 PM. This is a hybrid meeting and we no longer need to read the preamble. So we will move on to a roll call.
Okay. We have roll call.
So Mayor Davis,
Oh, here.
Councilmember
you.
Cunningham,
I'm here.
Chair Davis,
Here.
Vice Chair Salmon.
Here.
Park and Rec Commissioner Greenlee is absent at the moment. And Park and Recreation Commissioner. Here. All right. So roll call, item A, consider any request of a city council member to attend the meeting remotely under emergency circumstances of AB 2449. I know that Ms. Greenlee was going to try to join us and post the agenda. But she has yet to join at this moment, so.
So do we have to consider the request? Like we have to agree that we're willing to allow her to do that?
Is that a motion?
I think we
I'm
do.
not sure, I think so.
Well, why don't we just make it?
Motion,
So I'll make a motion should Commissioner Greenlee decide to join us that her emergency circumstances pursuant to AB 2449 will be allowed.
I'll second
roll call, Mayor Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember Cunningham,
it. Aye.
Chair Davis,
Aye.
Vice Chair Salmon,
Aye.
Park and Recreation Commissioner Sewell.
Aye.
All right, we'll move on to approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion for that?
So moved.
Second. Second.
Hey, Mayor Davis,
Aye.
Cunningham.
Aye.
Chair Davis,
Aye.
Vice Chair Salmon,
Aye.
Park and Recreation Commissioner Sewell.
Aye.
All right, we'll move on to approval of the minutes from December 5th, 2022, Public Art Advisory Committee.
So I'll make a motion to approve the minutes
Second,
B, C, and D.
I second that we approve the minutes, B, C, and D, unless someone has questions.
And there was one thing that was kind of a sentence that I looked at it on my phone. I'm not sure. Hold on a second.
We can make a corrective,
Yeah, it was just like a word, like the sentence,
wasn't
the
clear.
grammar, but that was the only thing. Sorry. It was just like one of the words. I know what it is. So anyhow,
So are you moving or not? I mean,
yeah, we can move on with the roll call. I mean, I don't.
I think that's a minor grammar.
Yeah, I think so.
That's
Doesn't
not like the
change
content.
out-
Yeah,
the-
no.
Okay, so
All right, so for roll call for that is Mayor Davis,
aye.
Councilmember Cunningham,
Aye.
Chair Davis,
Aye.
Vice Chair Salmon,
I,
Park and Recreation Commissioner Sewell.
Aye.
Okay, we'll move on to presentations and discussion items. E, review RFP samples and begin framing key components of a public arts master plan for plan RFP for Brisbane attachment.
Sorry, to scroll all the way down, past all of these.
there's quite a few different ones in there, though.
There's 4.
Yeah, it's 93 pages.
Yeah,
long.
South San Francisco, Belmont, Alameda, and
Yeah.
Redwood City.
Absolutely, yeah. And I have a question. Review, do you want, I mean, I don't know how we're gonna review this, except the fact that we read it.
Yeah,
Right, and I guess my question is, from this review and what we're talking about now, we will get something that for the next meeting that's written up from us to that.
the goal today, I think, is to kind of begin framing the RFP so that we can piece it together and then come back to this group and have you.
So what
can
we like
fine-tune.
from different ones is what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay.
So kind of identifying goals and purpose and scope of work and
All
qualifications
right.
and what we're really looking for in terms of structuring the RFP for a proposal.
Right.
Well, I really liked that Belmont's was like short and to the point. I would think that if I was wanting to apply, like to try to read everything else, there's a lot of the specifics, right, in like the recitals. And you can get into a lot more detail there, but I just felt like if I put myself in a consultant's shoes, I would be more keen on applying to something that, you know, wasn't 20 pages long. So I thought that theirs was really straight and to the point. I don't know that I would, like, I thought that it was helpful that South San Francisco had the evaluation criteria, but I don't know that we want to box ourselves in by determining what that is ahead of time. A lot of times with these things, you sit down and you just can tell who the right fit is. So I don't know by having like a points-based system that necessarily, like, maybe we develop that afterwards if it's hard for us to kind of come to some sort of consensus, but
I think what we're doing right now is trying to get an RFP to put out to the public
right,
for people to respond to.
Right.
So, in terms of the evaluation, I agree with you.
because it's already like they had theirs in, South
Yeah.
City had theirs in there. And I don't know if
Form in
it's
there.
necessary.
Yeah.
A lot. It's a lot.
Well, that's gonna be a conversation after. we
That's what I'm
choose
saying,
the person. Let's get into the nitty gritty now. Okay, we
Yes.
liked you, we hired you. Now let's get into the dirt.
Because we don't really usually have that type of section when we,
No,
I mean, I've never really seen it.
in
So-
any kind of general
That's
message.
not in the
So
RFP.
yeah, I think an RFP has to be clear, simple and concise.
Yeah.
So that people aren't, I mean, there were 93 pages.
It's like,
in
what
this
do
thing.
they want?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, I'm granted there were 4, but the point is that I think you got to get to the nitty gritty with the RFP.
Belmont's is 2 pages.
Yeah.
They had one of the best. I mean, clearly with these 2 pages, they were able to, with the final product end up being something that we all really resonated with. So I think you can, the more concise you are, it doesn't mean that you're gonna,
I agree.
you
with
don't need to overload them with information to get something successful.
Well, and Alameda's is up crazy. So with that in mind, should we just take a look at this time and focus in on Belmont for now? Would you like to just look at everybody on the same page and look at the Belmont one? So we can look at. Do we want to just try to carbon copy?
Well, I mean, this is not too long. It's just the recite, it's just like the contract itself. That's really,
So
really
do we want to kind of take a look and see, are there sections that, basic sections that we do like, or sections that we don't, or sections from another thing
Yeah,
that
yeah.
we want to incorporate? So I think that since that's the smallest, maybe we start with Belmont.
Different approach.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Background, scope of work.
I think all of them basically are gonna probably have that.
You know, where they're located, you know, that kind of thing.
So they have a checklist here. Final public art master plan could include but not be limited to the following key elements. We don't have a key elements section.
Which one are you?
What page?
We're all looking at Belmont.
Yeah.
But that particular
Their
one,
second
the
page.
Final,
Second
the
page.
second
Top of
page,
this, yeah.
Oh, thank you.
top of the second page. Oh, there you go.
Such a cool person. Part of the problem I had with it online is that I like to have things paper next to
Mhm.
next so I can see and I can't do that when it's online.
Well, I can print out some. You know, if
That's
you have
okay.
a
No, no,
request,
I'm
I can
fine.
print out
I have it
some.
now. When they say, in this one, opportunities for funding models for public art, what do you think they mean for that? I mean, I know that we have a funding. A
I
budget,
think that that's
Is that
probably
what
what
that
they're
means?
referring to,
Okay.
or alternative sources for.
our
funding.
alternative
Yeah.
sources, okay. And does that have to be in this alternatives? Sources have to be added when we do something like this?
It can be if that's something that we want a consultant to provide to us as part of the master planning process.
We have a fairly robust.
I was gonna say, keep it
We're
as
already
broad
pretty-
as possible.
Yeah, let's keep it as broad as, yeah.
know when South City came and presented to us, they had established kind of 4 goals that you saw a common thread
Mhm.
through their RFP documents and their master planning kind of visioning process. So I don't know if it would be helpful to kind of identify some of those for us to help structure what we're looking for in candidates. So there's where community involvement, diversity of art, creation of sense of place, and artist participation.
Yeah,
So I think just kind of having some high level, this is what we are hoping to accomplish. These are the outcomes would be helpful to identify in the RFP language.
Where,
Oh, I think
where
that's
you
really a good idea.
That was from when they presented to us.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. I agree with that.
I think that there should be a section, maybe it's part of background, that kind of explains that we have a public art
Yes.
committee.
Oh, good idea, the
Yes.
background.
And how that it's relatively new. We have a few projects under our belt, just kind of where the state of the committee is now, what it's comprised, who it's comprised of. I think is important.
And I think what South City has when they talk about diversity and all that, that would be part of the key elements.
Correct.
So that would
Yeah.
be added to what we see right here.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Then yeah.
So what are the key elements? Let's make sure we're in agreement that they are.
Well, I was
Yeah.
going off of the ones from Belmont. Yeah, Belmont. That was these, and I was just thinking, should we add
Right.
to that the South City ones?
Or we may not like some of those.
Yeah, well, the ones that
It was,
Noreen just mentioned.
yeah,
Say them again.
community involvement, diversity of art, creation of sense of place, and artist participation.
Artist participation, what does that mean?
You know, that's the one in South City. That's the one where I sometimes say what I said earlier, and that's what I referred to. Their model's a little different because in their cultural department,
Cultural arts, yeah.
cultural arts department,
Mhm.
they have artists who are part of their rec program.
Right.
And that's their art participation. So I don't know.
I don't know that applies.
Apply to us.
So what I'm saying is that I don't think artist participation is part of the master plan. The artist participation happens once we get the master plans
Yeah.
done and we find the artists.
Right.
That comes down. It's a little different.
Mhm.
Because if I'm not mistaken, what I got when we were talking for South City is that their master plan was much broader in what encompassed a broader responsibility.
Yeah. Well, it's a whole department and
It
they
was a
have their
whole
own
depart- yeah, it was a
budget of
whole
50,000 or
department with their budget that they had.
72,000 a year. Yeah,
Yeah,
they do
that's what I'm saying,
performances.
yeah.
Yeah.
Where there's not a department. So I would not include that.
Some of them have timelines. I don't know if we want to lock ourselves into that yet either, because sometimes we choose to extend or
With the consultant,
like, the RFP
RFP
release
process.
day for the RFP process.
We will have to nail down those
We have
details
to
as we
get
get
an
further into
RFP
the
out.
process.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm hoping we get this RFP done.
They have quite.
Well, I'm just, they have like this whole like
Yes,
built-in structure within South City. Belmont doesn't have something that's like as rigid as it's. I just don't really want to have like. That thorough of a timeline.
Well, the one thing I would say about that, because I think I asked them, I mentioned their timeline that they had and whether they were on target, and they were. So in that regard, the benefit of having a timeline is helps you keep the momentum going and helps you stay focused and helps you move through the plot process. I mean, there is something to be said about that, but then on the other side, so.
This is just for the RFP.
this is, yeah, I think the timeline comes once you get the consultant. No,
Well, this is just related to the RFP.
yeah, okay,
So it's the RFP release date, and then question submission cutoff deadline.
I don't see a problem having the timeline, and if something
Yeah.
goes south,
We
we can
amend.
always extend it and amend it.
Yeah,
Right.
okay, so we'll build,
Yeah.
we'll add that.
Yep.
And in there.
Okay,
And I like that they did have the whole timeline for the whole process. Once they had their consultant, they had really thought it through. How long, when they started this, to how much time.
Well, the consultant will have to provide them.
Right,
to us.
right.
When people have a deadline, they're more apt to get on it too. If it's kind of this
Right.
wishy-washy thing.
No, I think a timeline is great.
I mean, we're trying to
And it-
get something accomplished.
That's
And it
right,
also
right,
makes
that's
it
the
clear
point.
for those who are applying, if they have the capacity to apply.
Mhm.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, I think that's a very nice part that helps those who are looking at the RFP.
Mhm.
They can fit it into their schedule.
Yeah.
And say,
now.
Yeah.
they can say, I can do this job because I have the next one or whatever. I'll be
And I
committed.
can't
I
do
have it.
this job because I'm booked,
Mhm.
so it makes a difference.
So it circles back to short and sweet.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So there's, Alameda has the RFP schedule also. So Alameda also has the submittal requirements. And so I don't know if we want to get that specific either, but it says, the city is requesting that submitted proposal contain the following information in the ensuing order, table of contents.
What page are you on?
Well, it's 4, but it's not really 4.
And
It's 4 in
Alameda,
Alameda.
Okay.
well, I will say Redwood City on page 6 also has a submittal requirement.
Okay, well, let's
It's
just
pretty
read it.
standard.
So do we
Yeah.
want to outline? Do we specifically want all of these things or?
It's 6 copies of each document
Who was there?
in a spiral bound soft cover. Don't submit loose leaf 3 binder or other hardcover binder. I mean, they're very specific on how they want that done.
I think that.
Yeah, if we could just say electronic submissions in this format, not to exceed 30 pages or something like that. I
Yeah.
mean, with these types of requirements that include samples of work and references and.
Absolutely.
And they.
I think that to me, I think I like Redwood Cities better.
Submission requirements?
Yeah, so it's cover letter, letter of interest. And then, it's on the next page.
Well, they also have a submittal of previous work.
Yeah, so it's
And
statement,
your- mhm.
statements of qualifications, relevant experience, examples of work, professional background, list of clients. And then just like, how they want it, but I think that's a little bit more
Softer.
clear to me than like team organization and description and project understanding and approach and project manager, key staff. I just feel like this is what I want to know. Like,
Redwood
what have
City
you done?
Example. Okay.
Yeah, there's-
What, oh, okay, this is here.
Yeah, so I just want to say
Okay.
hi. We had a bit of a glitch happen in the Zoom world. So we are back. on. Our TV has failed here now, but we can see you on this little TV. I apologize. I don't know it's not a big TV, but Zoom has, but she can see us all through the
Oh, okay.
camera. It's fine, but for some reason our
Redwood
TV
City.
won't go up and
Oh,
there
I
we go.
apologize.
Can I, hi, I've been waiting for like 20
I
minutes here.
know.
Oh, we didn't even know you were there.
Yeah,
But could you just catch me up where, what you guys are discussing just briefly so I know what you're doing?
yes. Go
Okay.
ahead.
We're working on item E, presentation and discussion items, review RFP samples and begin framing key components of a public art master plan.
Okay,
That part of the agenda, and we have packets from South San Francisco, Redwood City, Alameda, and Belmont, their request RFPs. And we're kind of looking at different elements of each of them. And some of them we like better than others, so we're just we're looking at Alameda right now, page 6.
No.
Redwood City. Page 7 on, I think it was was it the requirements? Submittal requirements, if somebody was gonna, what they needed to submit in order for this RFP. Cover letter, letter of interest, statement of qualifications, what relevant experience, that's on page 7. Professional background, list of client references. And a presentation material, that kind of thing. So we were looking at comparing that to, I think it was Belmont. This one was a little bit more clear on exactly what we wanted in that part of the RFP.
Okay,
So, yeah,
I'm not sure I have those. I'm not sure if I have those here printed out. Were those in the packet that was sent?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh, I must not have printed out the right thing. That's okay, keep going.
Lisa, can I just add something?
Yeah, sure.
The Redwood City, page 7, if you can find it and pull it up. I think what I just sort of garnered from the voices in the room was we all kind of like this because it's to the point, it's simple, but it encompasses everything I think those of us who were talking could think we would want to put in there. So I don't know if you can find that. Oh, I think
let's see with this, yeah.
we pull it out.
Scrolling down.
It was just very succinct.
Okay, I like succinct, whatever.
Say it again.
Succinct.
So Belmont had like that really good framework, very succinct, and then there are a few things from South City and a few things from Redwood City that we saw, and we were like, we should add that.
Hmm,
Timeline and what we're expecting is included in the RFP, certain sections.
here we go.
We're
right?
expecting are there.
So.
Page 7, yeah,
Good there.
it was just really to the point.
Okay. One page maximum. Okay.
And Noreen said electronic submittal.
Makes it easier for everybody to
Oh, yeah.
review.
I like that for submittal requirements, what we did.
On
Yeah.
great. Redwood City, from 13 on, is just the standard agreement, right?
We also have the selection process.
So I just want to figure out that it really is 11 pages,
Oh, I see, yeah.
or.
Well,
Or
I
online.
liked Belmont's consultant selection. We go back to like, because that's the main document that
Yeah.
it's really to the point. It's, pursuant to government code of state of California, equal opportunity, right? And then it's based on qualifications, selection committee. I would say public art, public art committee established by the city will review. The consultant will review the proposals received by the deadline below. Develop a short list of qualified firms. Depending on the relative quality of the proposals, the city may invite shortlisted firms to interview with city staff. And the public art committee, the city reserves the right to reject any and all proposals. The confirmation of this engagement will be subject to fiscal year 23 budget adjustment or approval of the fiscal year 24 budget. Like just edit that.
Yeah.
But I think this is like on a lot of I was looking at the city's job, like applications for job openings, job opening applications, and it's very, very similar language. So I don't know that we need to take up like a ton of space to say something we could say in like 3 sentences. But this is very,
Yep.
very close to exactly what the language we already use.
And the other thing you missed, Lisa, if I may,
Mhm.
in the RFP, keeping that part short, but then once somebody is chosen, then get into the weeds and the mud and, lots and lots of detail rather than Alameda had it very flowery, long language and it's like, well, let's find the person and then get into the mud.
I think I agree with that. Yep, that sounds good.
Redwood City has a sealed fee proposal. Is that
Mhm.
required?
Yeah.
So how would we do that on a digital? Yeah.
They submit it separately
Got
in a
it.
separate document. And basically what Madison just said, it's a qualifications-based selection process. So you base it on their proposal minus their fee, and then you disclose the fee.
Got it. Wait, getting all these is great. Saves us a ton of time.
Yeah.
Copy paste best stuff.
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
So what's it?
absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Nice work.
So it was
Agree.
7 on Redwood City in terms of the submittal requirements, 6 and 7, right? Yep, we liked.
Yes.
And then the.
How does that
consultant
differ
selection.
from Alameda?
I didn't see.
Middle instruction, first page.
Alameda on page 5, the selection process is on page 5.
Middle requirements.
Sure.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
ABCD.
Do you feel that that needs to be put in there?
This is what I was comparing to.
Yeah.
I thought that this was a little bit more obscure than
That's what I'm saying. It's a little
Well,
more obscure than
the other one.
the other one. Okay,
Yeah.
that's what I thought too.
Yeah.
I agree.
By the way, Tom, they steal a lot of Brisbane stuff because we do the best stuff.
Yeah.
We do the best marketing.
We all
We're all
steal
in
each
this
other's
together.
stuff. No need to recreate the wheel.
No, right?
Mhm.
So do we feel like we've really covered all the elements that we want, or
Do we have to put in submittal requirements?
Yeah, we talked about,
Okay,
we
yeah.
liked Belmont.
Belmont.
Yep.
Okay. All right, and then the rest is standard. And I'm not mistaken.
Agreements, so
Yeah.
how do we know which?
We have an agreement.
Okay, so we don't incorporate
for
for
their
their
review.
For
Yeah.
their review. Yeah.
Okay, so that's already, is
Okay.
that what's, okay, so
That makes
for
it
instance,
sweet and clear.
in Alameda, is the rest of this agreements after
Yeah.
page
Yes.
7?
Yeah.
So theirs is really only like 6 pages.
Contract.
Yeah, they put in the contract and everything.
Mhm.
They have the timeline too.
Okay, they do have a timeline.
Yeah. So, yeah, all
I-
them have that. except
I,
Belmont.
I think a timeline, I think it's a good thing. You
Yeah.
can always change it, like Karen said, or adjust it or throw it out the window, but I think it helps keep it on track and keeps the momentum going.
Well, and
This is
as,
what we want to do.
as Camille said, you don't want, if we don't have a timeline, an artist won't know whether they can
Yeah.
fit it into their schedule.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So.
I think we're the
people want
consultants.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Okay,
I mean, I think it's helpful for those who want to apply.
cool.
okay, so what from Alameda did we like? Remind me, so we can go one by one and determine. Basically, it's 6 pages, so was there anything in this one? I don't think we had anything, so right, out of Alameda? No.
Oh, look.
Commercial auto. That's,
Yeah, I would say like other RFPs do similar things, but I like the execution better than Alameda, the way Alameda did it.
Okay, so if there's nothing, we can just put Alameda aside for now, if we want. Okay, so let's move on
It's
to,
very wordy.
yeah.
okay,
No offense.
let's move on to Belmont then.
Written by an
And-
attorney.
Well, that's what we did with Belmont. We just did Belmont.
Okay, well, I just want to make sure. So we like pretty much,
What do we like from
Well, but-
something?
All the stuff.
well, I'm just going one at a time so we can, it's kind of a process. Let's. Okay, so out of Belmont, we liked everything or what?
Yeah,
part
we're
We
just
did
gonna enhance it
enhance it. So we're gonna enhance
with the
Belmont.
timeline,
with the timeline.
which is we got from South City.
Okay, and then we're gonna go to Redwood City, and what we liked out of Redwood City was
Was page 7.
6 and 7, right? Because I think they're together. I think
Mhm.
7 is part of 6, part of the section 2. We like section 2
I don't know.
out of Belmont, I mean Redwood City, excuse
Yep.
me.
Well, we don't care if it's on an 8.5 by 11. That's where she's saying electronic.
Yeah,
version.
that doesn't really
So
matter.
that's- that-
6 is out.
6 is not, it's really 7.
7, yep, 7.
It's really 7.
Okay, that's fine.
The section though is,
What about
the middle.
evaluation of responses? We didn't really talk about that, like they have section 3. Is that something we want to look at comparing the two cities?
I think that's the
Everything.
same like as. I think that says the same thing that Belmont says, but just Belmont says it with maybe a little bit less detail, right? Consultant selection?
Yeah, it's only a paragraph. Maybe it's 2 pages. It's a paragraph.
Response.
Well, it's-
Okay, and then South City, let's move on to that one. Was there some elements of this? that we-
5, the timeline,
We like the timeline. But
timeline.
So,
And we're
I
adding
don't need to have that.
the community involvement. What was that?
Oh, we need to go over the 4 things.
Yeah, community
The,
involvement.
the overarching goals, really.
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
key
Can you say them
elements.
one more time, please?
Yeah. Community involvement. diversity of art,
Yep.
creation of sense of place, and artist participation.
For artist
Yeah.
participation.
We're gonna, we
scratching
put
out.
something else in.
Just some core goals that will help kind of guide.
I would say like connection, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, what was the last? I got sense of place and then what was the last?
Artist participation.
Okay, does that mean local artists? What does that mean? Artists?
That came from South San Francisco's kind
Okay.
of goals and purpose.
Okay,
Um,
artist
so-
participation, meaning they want their artists or any artists to participate?
I think it's open.
I think we're gonna leave that out.
Yeah,
We were
Okay.
thinking
It's not
that
clear.
since South San Francisco has its own department, if you remember correctly.
Right.
And they have those employees within, that's kind of why that was there. But since there's no department per se in the city of Brisbane, that's not to say community involvement would include any artist.
Right, that's, yeah,
Same thing, yeah.
yeah.
So
I
we
would
didn't
just,
feel,
I would just think that if you're commissioning art, you would have artists. I don't know.
right,
Yeah,
Exactly,
it's, that's like seems redundant.
that's what we were saying,
Done.
yeah.
It's
Okay.
gone.
Okay, good, good.
and did Belmont had key elements that were kind of similar
Let's see, keywords.
towards the beginning of that, I think.
Vendor submissions.
Vision goals, guiding principle, page 12.
Identification of sites. I mean, I think I like this. I think I like laying it out like this better than just saying community involvement.
Right. What does
Where
that mean to
Yeah,
us?
this is.
Yeah,
this is
that's a
more
good one.
specific.
Correct.
Because it's
Yeah.
like, strategies for ongoing community engagement and outreach to a diverse group of stakeholders.
Yeah,
Has much more to it than just saying, we care about
Engagement.
community involvement.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I like
that
that better.
And
I
I
like
think that would be considered page 2. Not counting the cover.
I think that, but do we like all of these? Maybe we should go through these bullet points. They all seem like really important.
We can further refine too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
For all great.
The last one, I think from a legal perspective is really important.
Yeah.
Analysis and recommendation for
Yeah.
collection strategy, including recommendations for collection, maintenance,
Mhm.
conservation,
Mhm.
and deaccession.
And I think
Yes.
we also need ownership.
And ownership, who
Yep.
owns the
Yes.
park.
Yeah,
Yes.
ownership is big. Yep, ownership is big.
Yeah, that's come up many times, so
Mhm.
good call.
Well,
Melissa.
sadly, what has kind of shot the artistic, some artistic, public art in the foot has been ownership issues.
Yes,
And that has put the kibosh on a lot of public art projects that were more free flowing before, and then ownership, started to be a problem, and then people would just cut it off. So yeah, we need that right up front, ownership.
yeah, no, absolutely. Good call, Madison. That's probably its own section
Mhm.
discussing ownership, I would
I
think.
think it's a marketing angle too, because if we're ownership friendly for artists that they own it, that's says well to the whole group.
Well,
Well,
there are copyright laws
Yeah.
that we should really look into, as in if the city buys the rights from the artists, or the artist retains the copyrights, because an artist automatically has copyrights to any visual piece that they create. And that needs to be figured out. I don't know if we want to own it, or if we want to, it's like having an artist own the copyright, then there are limits on what you, like you said, advertising, like how much you can reproduce it and put it out there. If the artist owns the copyright, you have to keep that in mind, and every time it shows up, in your space.
Can I ask you something, Lisa? Wouldn't that
Yeah.
be if we kept it in the RFP as ownership? Then when it's time for a project, and you start to do the detail of the project, then that's when those elements become something for that particular request for submission,
Yeah, you build that into the contract right away.
rather than.
Yeah, and I would think that your consultant would be way up on these laws, way more than I am, because they would have dealt with this before. So that's where I would look for guidance on this question.
Do we want to add a section in here regarding temporary art? Because that's something we've discussed.
Yes,
But I think having a consultant talk about, art on loan or temporary art.
Performance
can
art.
I ask you, I'm always confused. Wouldn't that also be when right now, we're looking at someone for a consultant to put together a master plan. So we want that part of it, but that's not part of the RFP that we're asking for a consultant,
Right,
But it would be part of the master plan.
but it would be part of the
Right.
master plan.
Right.
Well, I think it said like the final public art master plan shall include, but not be limited to the following key elements. So I think if we would like to have something regarding temporary art or art on
And the
loan.
if we put in the
Mhm.
possibility of
Something
temporary or loan.
City
art.
We might want to put that
Yeah.
in here, just like we want to have, we want our master plan to outline how we will go about ownership.
Mhm. Okay,
One of the things we discussed a long time ago was the possibility of the temporary art situation being something like someone just did something, a huge project and they've got nowhere to keep it for the next year. That those kind of
on loan.
projects
right.
could come on loan,
Mhm.
which helps them, helps us.
And the ownership would be different, right?
Right,
In
it's
those-
not theirs.
It's still there,
It's gonna hang out here for a year until they take it to the next.
Mhm.
wherever.
Wherever.
I still think in a situation like that, we shouldn't think of it as on loan and free to us. There should be some compensation for them making that art,
I think
right?
we would.
Well, we
Yeah.
would, but that's not part of the master plan.
Right.
That's,
We
It's
would
just,
figure out those policies.
yeah, we want to make sure that that's noted in there, and then if we have that possibility, then there's that understanding with the artist, because a master plan is allowing us to do that.
They'll
Okay.
get a-
I got
they'll get a- They'll get a fee, but it's helping them and helping us as well.
Yeah.
I don't want anything for free because nothing is free.
Right.
Right, yeah, this,
Nothing is free.
One of the things I was noticing in South San Francisco. And I'm not sure if that's in the Belmont or the Redwood City, it is on page 6. They talk about their public participation plan. I think that's really important. Like, I think that definitely needs to be in writing, and I want to make sure that that's in there, that we have,
Mm.
that's the second to the last.
Yeah.
And they broke it into two, sentences there, number 1 and number 2, but we definitely want to make sure that we get public, that's part of their scope of what their, scope of work is to really get the public participation.
That's in whose plan?
That's on South San Francisco, page 6, towards the bottom.
With part.
Yep. They also, on page 7, number 5, they list and map potential locations for future art. So I don't know if we want to also include that. I don't know that this was part of theirs.
I thought I saw it in
It's
Belmont.
in Belmont.
Yeah, I thought I saw it in Belmont.
In the key
Yeah.
elements?
Okay.
The key element.
Okay, because this is South, okay.
Yeah, that would be key elements. So.
Can I ask about businesses and their decisions on what artwork should that be part of it? I mean, I've heard a lot of businesses will dictate what art is on their property.
Yeah.
Is there anything in that that should be included?
I think that's part of the
Have a process
implementation
already.
guidelines and
Okay.
ordinance, yeah.
I mean, they can, if they have to pay $500,000,
Yeah.
they could
think it's
pick
either
whatever they
or,
want,
yeah.
and they want to buy
There
it.
are certain guidelines,
Yeah,
though, like,
yeah,
it
yeah.
has to be,
They could choose to pick their own artist.
I think we have to be able to like see it or.
Yeah, it has to be accessible
has to be
to the public at
Yeah.
pretty much all times.
That doesn't need to
other than
be in here.
Specific hours. or
No.
anything.
Yeah. So that would probably, but yeah. Okay.
Good.
You may want to also, I don't know if this is, you want to do this now or not, but in the background, we may want to say like the catalyst for this is that we're planning for the Baylands, right? And we're also looking at planning a park out at Sierra Point. And those are two rather big projects in which public art will have a place.
Mhm.
And so to have this master plan not only helps us plan for art in Brisbane as it is right now, but there is massive opportunity.
Right.
And to have this framework in place will help us plan art for, you know, essentially a whole other city worth of.
Yeah, all these other
Public
opportunities
art.
coming, yeah.
Yeah,
That's a
for the
good
future, for the future. Yeah. Spaces that don't exist yet.
Right. But that public art can be really ingrained in the planning of
Mhm.
those
Mhm.
spaces, that it's part of the thought process from the beginning and not just, oh, we're gonna throw a statue here because we're required to have some public art somewhere. So I think those kinds of opportunities are really very rare compared to other cities.
Yeah, it would get me excited to be part of the proposal.
I would think so, yeah.
For sure.
Okay, so those are all really great points, and I just want to go back on, South City. Page 10, it has a criteria. We did not want to have that points-based system, right? That was
No,
something
no.
that we don't really want to include that kind of thing. Okay.
No.
Okay, so,
Yeah, it's totally.
any other input from committee members on these 5 cities? How many do we have? 5 or
I love,
no 4? Yeah.
it's still,
Mhm.
I think it's
I'm sorry, what did you say?
simple. I love what we've just distilled. I think it's really simple. I mean, I think quite often we try to make things too complicated because we can, and I think give it simple, stupid works all the time.
Cast a wide net.
Okay, so based on, anybody else have comments to make on that? Lisa, anything?
No, I agree with what you guys did. I like it simple.
Okay, so I think based on what we talked about, Noreen, is that enough to come back with like some kind of document that we
Yes.
can look at? And then I think in the meantime, if you want hard copies to maybe have time to really look through these and digest and maybe massage it, look at some of these other, look at the cities a little bit more in depth if you haven't had a chance to.
Right.
And add things, or maybe we look at that document, take things out. So just, I think we'll start work.
I would also like it so that I could have what's going to be happening, what that RFP is going to look like. So, and then read that and review the others.
Yeah, in comparison.
In comparison, I would prefer doing it that way,
Yeah.
because then there's something that I have a basis to compare.
Does it feel right for us?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Or we should add this or not, yeah.
Nice job.
Well, this gives me enough
That's a lot of data,
input to
though.
take a stab at a draft, and then we can bring that back to our next meeting.
Great.
Awesome.
So before we move on to item F, I just want to make sure if anybody has any public comment or any feedback that they would like to give. I don't have any emails specific to that, it's just general. Okay. Great. Item F.
Okay, item F, is discuss approach for identifying project fee structures. I wanted that because my concern is, how do we come up with the fee? And I kind of feel like some of the projects we've done, whether it's the skate park or finding a consultant for the community park, we just kind of threw out a number, and I don't know how we come up with that number for a consultant. And so, for a consultant or for an artist? No, I'm talking about to hire a consultant for the master
For the
plan.
master plan.
And then hopefully they will help us going forward. So for instance, whatever fee we chose for the consultant for the park, did we only get 2 applicants because our fee structure was not in line with that scope of work? Maybe was it too low? So I don't-
Kind of discussed that though, is more the fact that that's kind of an odd request that we had put out there as a consultant versus just putting it out there for a call for artists. There's not very many consultants who just
Consult
consult
is for a
and
people.
then choose artists,
Right.
and that was part of the problem.
So
kind of,
back
Yeah.
to,
So I guess your
Item F.
question is, what are we deciding we're gonna pay the consultant for the master?
well, or what guidelines are we gonna use? Where do we come up with the number? That's what
Well, I think
what
this
I'm
is-
trying to figure out.
To do something like this, what we're embarking on is a little bit easier because there's already a lot of other cities who have done it.
Well, I know
And
South
so
City.
South City just
I know what
did
theirs
it, so
is,
I
yeah.
think that there are other cities that it can inform how much, like, we asked that question when we did all those interviews. So I think that, we can go off that basis. And then, I think like, after that, the approach that we had where we said we want to hire basically like a curator, right? To do the space behind the library, and the overall budget maybe was 200,000 and then, or 250, but then the curator gets 10% of that. Maybe that was just too small, it was also like a very odd request because not a lot of, it was just, I think that's why we didn't, and we did get people who applied, right? We just didn't resonate with any of
Well, we
the,
got two
we did
and
get
one backed out. So we only have
but
one
when we have ever asked for artists,
That was
We get
different.
we've always
That was
had like an
different. We did
abundance.
it.
Yeah,
And
I know.
I think that once we have a master plan,
Right.
then that process of, soliciting from artists maybe will be a lot easier, but
Well, item F is specifically just for the RFP. That's all it was. It has nothing to do.
Oh, okay.
That's all I'm talking about. So the only number that I recall that we have was Belmont, which was done about 2 years ago, is 25,000. And South San Francisco is 80,000, but they budgeted 100. So they had a $20,000 kind of slush fund. So that's kind of all over the map for me.
Can
So
I
I'm
go
just
back
trying to
that
figure out.
$80,000, if I'm not mistaken, that $80,000 included the people in the departments.
yeah.
Yes, that also included,
I know, I don't believe so. I
But
had
none
my
of these
notes.
have that, though.
They have the
Really?
cultural arts department, and it was, their budget is either 50 or 72,000 for that department. What they paid for the consultant, I believe, was 80, and they budgeted 100.
Mhm.
They had 20,000 extra if they didn't calculate correct. Now, you might want to check that with South City.
that's my
again.
understanding as well.
That's what I wrote down on
Yeah.
my notes.
I'm
And I
not
think
saying-
Redwood City has had 60,000 for theirs.
I'm not seeing though that any of these RFPs have outlined from the get-go what the budget is.
Don't they have-
They allow
A
you
couple of them
to,
have not to exceed figures, but.
like, I think they just use.
I mean, if
it.
you're
You
gonna put
apply
an
and you say how
RFP, if you
much.
apply, you're gonna kind of need to know if it's worth your time.
But you say this is how much I'm gonna charge for this.
Well, I-
You should get an estimate, like, don't they have to give you a,
Yeah,
and then we
None
decide.
of them have that, huh?
I don't see like
So
where.
is that, so we should have that in the RFP, stated that they need to give us, if that's what if we
Yes.
as a committee decide that part of their submittal is a cost budget breakdown.
South City says,
We
sorry,
need to have that in the RFP.
budget. Consultant shall provide a proposed budget itemized by task
Yeah.
as well as the total project cost proposed. Total project cost stated as a firm fixed fee not to exceed $80,000. Labor and direct costs should be identified by task. Hourly rates for project staff shall also be provided. Cost proposal will be submitted separate from the rest of the RFP response.
That's on page
So
7.
that's the, is there anyone else? Is there any other ones that have specifically noted?
I thought that Redwood City
Budget.
said not to exceed 60,000.
Okay, I see it right here. The city looks to the consultant team to present a high quality scope of work and cost-effective fee proposal with a maximum budget of $60,000. Key components of the public art master plan include blah, 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 blah.
What city is this?
This is, no, this is Alameda. 2021, they did
Oh, so theirs is pretty new.
60,000. And then, what is?
That might have been the 180
Like
number.
2022,
South City was
Oh, yeah.
80,
Yep.
80.
and Belmont was 25 in the middle of COVID, but they had already started it. It's just COVID happened, but
I
they
don't
had a-
think, I think 25 is way too low now.
Well, I was shocked that they
Yeah, that to me
managed
is
to
like
get that.
wild.
I
Is
just
this
wanted to
a-
have
is this a fee for their curation? What is this? a fee?
No, to hire the consultant for the master plan.
We're talking master.
Oh,
plan.
okay, master plan. Okay, gotcha.
So that's something I wanted us to be able to have that dialogue, and that's why I wanted in.
That's a good idea. So we. yeah,
I
we
think
need
that's
to
really
put that
important
in
to
the-
think about
in the
going
RFP, yeah.
forward is a number that you're gonna get a really qualified, but not so high that you're just throwing your money away as well. So I think it needs to be really thought through.
Well, if you put a not to exceed $80,000, they'll come in with 79,000.
Right.
So
Every
I
time.
think we need to be pretty realistic about how we.
And how
I mean,
big our
is
city
it
compared to
better
other
to just
cities?
say,
How much work?
how much, how much will you tell us to do
charge?
this?
Yeah.
How much will you
Yeah,
charge?
I like getting,
I-
getting an estimate from them. That
Yeah.
would make
Oh.
sense.
Maybe that's how Belmont got 25.
Maybe that is.
Right?
how Belmont got
Well, what does
25.
Belmont say?
Yeah.
Look at Belmont. We got it right.
Belmont doesn't say.
And maybe we've done more work than other places now. you know?
It doesn't say.
Gotta turn my birdie down. I know.
I would think that would be a question, maybe, Noreen, if you could call Belmont and ask them, did they
Publish and.
publish it at all, or do they just wait and see what and then it was the lowest bidder got it? Okay, well, that's the lowest one. So that's what I'm curious.
We're
Well,
not
Beth-
supposed to
Beth-
judge on low.
It has to be
It has to be
qualifications based
qualifications
assessment.
only.
So you're not gonna see those
You're not
figures.
gonna know what
before
the
you
figures are
review.
that we present to you. Only staff sees that
Oh,
number.
interesting.
Mm.
Very interesting.
Beth's criticism has always been like, if you don't put something, then people will just assume it's too low and won't apply.
Right.
Right.
So I think it's a
Mm.
double-edged sword, right? You put too high of a number out there
Mm.
and then you get swindled. Or you don't put a number out there at all and you don't get any applications, or you get people who really reach for the stars because there's been no established limit.
Hmm.
So maybe as a committee, we establish like, we don't want this to exceed X. And then let Noreen investigate Belmont and then give her the
I think
authority
that's a good idea.
to choose
Yeah,
one or the
Sounds
other.
like a really good idea.
Because
Very
when you
good.
don't have a number, like you said, and if somebody wanted to do a research on Brisbane, we got what, 4,200 residents, they could say, well, this is a little podunk town, they don't have money.
Right.
Well, I'm not gonna waste my
Right.
town. I mean, if you don't know and it's all hidden, it's gonna take time. And that was one of the things Beth also brought up, is it takes time for them to apply. They should know if it's worth their while to take all that time to apply for something, then they find out it pays 25 grand and they're a 60 grand consultant. They've wasted their time and it's unknown.
Yeah.
So what price do we think?
I will say, if I may, just real quick, when we did the Crocker Trail RFP, we did a not to exceed amount of 100,000. And we had several submissions that were received as part of that process. Some were 99,999 and some were 80, some were 72. So I mean, there was a range. They didn't all just say 99,000. So
That is, dog park resurfacing. I mean,
That
I
was
think that
very
it does,
also.
and construction of the library.
Well,
There's
I think
a little bit of
the competition to maybe get it, if, is to put out a fair price, if you're.
And what do we think fair prices?
Well, that's what I'm saying. How do we
Question is-
determine that? That's the question.
Well, South City is paying 80,000 and they're doing it right now in real time. They did it, probably came up with this budget last
What's
year.
their population?
I don't know that that matters.
66,000.
Because it's still the same amount of work, whether we have 4,200 residents or they have 60, however many. We're still asking for a document
And yeah,
That's
that,
true. That
you
is
know,
true. I agree.
is extensive. So
Well, I do think there seemed like it was a little bit more, because they have a cultural arts department. It did seem like it was a little bit more comprehensive, a little bit more complicated than ours, I will say. And I don't know that we have to come up with it today, because we're gonna look at the RFP document and you're gonna have to revisit. We don't want to have to come up with a number today, and maybe just something to chew on and figure out, maybe do some more research to get some numbers if you can. Obviously from the most recent ones, because as far back as we go, if it's 5 years ago, then that's irrelevant.
don't we have the numbers?
I mean, we have 25 and we have
60.
60 and 80.
25 is the one we like the most.
We're not gonna get.
Yeah, but we wanted more. We did want more
We
outreach.
want more
I think,
outreach.
They even said that we need another.
when we do that introductory part of it, to say, at the moment, we are a city of 4,600 people, but we are developing
Mhm.
Sierra Point. We are developing the
Future,
Baylands.
right.
The future looks bright.
Anticipated
Right.
growth, yeah.
Getting
Yeah.
excited.
And those areas are kind of blank slates. So it's not like, you're sort of constrained. I mean, it's a big wide open.
Lots of opportunity.
Yeah, I hope the document has a little bit of marketing in it.
Okay, well, we have another item on the agenda. So do you, we
So we're
want to
not
come
gonna
up with
come
a
up with a
number? Do we want to come up with a number today? Or do you want to
And
revisit
staff
this
can
and table
negotiate
for,
with them Too.
for,
Let's consider
um,
We could flip a coin and say $60,000.
I would say 75.
I
was
would,
gonna say 75.
I was gonna say 75 too.
You were.
I like 75. I get it.
Three quarters, all right.
All right, 75, there we go. I mean, we don't know. This is why. we're
Maybe
doing-
say, okay, for 75, this is the package we're gonna give you. If you wanna have 5 public outreach sessions with catering and
Right.
whatever down at the park, that's gonna be this, we can all card it if we
So
have
we can,
to.
I like that, yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
I like,
I like
Well, do you
that.
want to have a budget of 100? That way.
No.
if
But they don't need to know that.
No, no, of
Over
course, they don't. need
internally.
to
But you
know.
can, I mean, like, similar to what South City did is they left in that a contingency and that's something that we could do outside of.
own.
But it doesn't, yeah,
We
it
could
doesn't
present
need
to
to be part
council.
of the,
Correct.
yeah.
Let's get them and have that
Yeah.
conversation.
Okay, does this require a motion? Yes, no, no,
I don't think
okay.
so.
All right, so next item is consider ideas for small interim projects. I had this put on the agenda. I've been hearing feedback from the committee. We want to do some small, like, projects that are something in the meantime. So I had some ideas. One was, well, we could do something like do an art gallery like South City did. It doesn't really involve the whole, we could have like an art show, one day kind of thing. If that calls artists together, it's something that we're displaying people's art somehow. I don't know if we wanted what venue, but it could be a weekend or something like that. It doesn't really cost a whole lot of money. And we're encouraging art in the community.
I like that idea, but I would like to use that idea when we start to get artists, when we start to get community participation in the master plan. I
Well,
think
we could
that's a
do that
great way
too.
of
It could
doing
be on display at the
We could
community
do-
park or.
We could do
have
that
a
as a
whole booth.
community park
And
and
then-
the consultants could be there.
Right,
So as
that's
people
what
are
I'm saying,
drawn in
right?
by art, then they could start engaging them. Instead of just having a table, right,
Yeah.
where it's just a consultant and a few boards. If we make it like an exhibit at the community park, then that gives that consultant, people are drawn in.
Well, yeah, and I think it's great, but you have to also know, I don't know if there's a lot of people who want, I should say a lot. Let me rephrase it. There may be artists who are saying, I'm not bringing my art.
I could see-
outside To the element.
Well, the wind, the wind is the factor. And where are you gonna, if you have art, I
I'm
mean,
just
it
saying.
may
And in the
be,
sun.
well, it may
Yeah.
be a
Well,
location
there's a
like the
lot that goes on.
community, like the
True.
community center where you have the garden show.
Mhm.
It could be one weekend where you have an art show, and when we have the consultant already in place, they could be there at the same time,
Mhm.
getting feedback. It could be at a different
Yeah,
location.
it could be anywhere.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I just think those things would happen once we have the consultant.
We
I
could
mean,
do that
it
like the
could.
garden show. That could be a good
But it
idea.
could be something like
Yeah.
that. So that was one idea I just had. Another one was, I recall I made a wrong turn in Sebastopol one day. And I turned down this one street and literally every block had their mailbox done in some
Every
art.
house or every block.
Every house on the block had like some kind of art. And I was like, what is this? I was blown away. So this is something, this thing is called mailbox.com. It's just one website.
What is it? Mailbox?
No, Mailbox. If you want to look at mailbox.com, there are all kinds of ideas. We could hold a competition if people wanted
That
to.
would
But it's mailboxes that
Yeah,
are.
mailbox art.
On your property.
Like this one is a mail truck. Okay, it's very kitsch.
Yeah.
And guess what? So are fire hydrants. So it goes along with that. It's not anything that really
Yeah.
costs us money, but we're promoting. So it was an idea because we're trying to get our master plan, but we also want something to do, right? Somebody talked about benches or something, but you can engage
Having fun.
people.
That's a low cost.
Yeah.
That's a low cost project that has community involvement.
That's what I
Just like
mean,
the
yeah.
fire hydrants, you provide the money for materials. You could do like a workshop or something. And then people start doing it and it catches on.
I mean, here's like an old car.
I see Lisa.
Here's a computer. This one looks like a computer with a keyboard. This
I have a-
one
I have
is a
a quick
mannequin.
question. I have a quick question just about where this falls as a project, because is the fire hydrant painting part of the Park and Rec department events?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so does that mean that this committee would then fund like a separate thing, or would this go to the Park and Rec events committee? How would this, I'm a little confused as, I love the ideas. I'm just wondering who's going to be running it? Would that be
Well,
Park and
I don't
Rec?
know that this needs to fund anything. I could think you could just have like a competition or a project, or one of the things I thought about was the Derby. And how we have the derbies, and now the derbies have been like created into all, they just start off as derbies and they become like great creations. And
Right.
so maybe this is something that the art committee can encourage people somehow, or you could have a prize. So if you're funding something, maybe it's a first, second, third prize. You have maybe there's a workshop, they do have derby workshops.
And
so
you pay
maybe
the artist.
you
to
pay the
run
artist, you could have an artist
to do
in
the
town
workshop.
run the workshop and show materials and have examples and things like that. So there may be some fee from this department. I would imagine that if we had this committee back when we did the fire hydrants, that would have fallen under this committee, because we talk about painting utility boxes and other cities have had those as projects. Okay, and that's fallen under the art committee. So this is like somebody's mailbox, whether it's the one, the rural route one, or the one that's on your front porch, those could be done as well. It's just an idea that
No,
is
no,
very
I-
low cost. Yeah.
I really like the idea. Our events committee is pretty full, and it would be great if this committee could take ownership of those ideas and kind of, work with the city to plan them and fund them
Yeah.
fund them just for supplies. I mean, it doesn't
Right.
have to be a lot of money. I'm not seeing that. But as far as, throwing it, I see this stuff kind of in the past being thrown to the Park and Rec events committee. Am I correct, Noreen? Or is that how it kind
I
of works?
think it's just, it has depended.
It
Yeah.
has depended, but I
Well,
like
and
the idea. I like the idea of this committee taking ownership of some more artistic community involvement events and making them happen, just like the Park and Rec department does.
Yeah, I think
Right.
that's what we would do.
Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah,
would never
we
think
do.
to suggest something and give it to another department. Yeah.
Let's put it on the agenda for discussion. What else would be fun would be doing a day of sidewalk chalk art.
That would
Yeah,
be
yeah,
great.
yeah, that's-
I would
I
think that
love
would be
that.
fantastic, like they have in
That's
San
that's our,
Diego.
excuse me, that's already on our events
Oh.
calendar.
Okay, never mind.
Okay, you can have that one then.
No, I mean, I'm just saying it already
I think
is.
it would be a kick to have them, but if we.
I would say that if you want to do a really good chalk event, because I used to be like big into these chalk events in different cities. You need good supplies. You don't need those crappy chalks, and those good chalks cost a lot of money. I mean, more money than you would think, because
I know.
Lisa,
I
I think in the same vein, though, like things might come up at Park and Rec that are artists, that are art related, just like that event. And you may want to say, hey, actually, let's punt this to the we as the liaisons are going to take this. Because in my mind, I hear that and I'm like, why is that not here?
Yeah.
So,
Fire hydrants here, that's what I've always.
well, that's
Well,
because the
I
fire
think
hydrants were here since
I
the
would-
seventies.
See, I think having it, because I'm on both committees, I think having it on this arts committee, focusing it more on art and having a slightly better budget than what the rec department does is a really good idea. And I would love to get those projects over to this committee, because I think the art supplies that'll be involved and the staff time and who's gonna make it happen. This committee could be a little bit more focused on making the art happen rather than it just be kind of a side event that's,
Yeah.
you know, that,
Yep.
that's not as professional as it could be.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
I love everything that was just said.
Okay.
You
and
had
then-
ideas for benches too.
Oh, benches, I am all over the benches.
I was.
I actually
Someone did-
mentioned that I had a meeting earlier with Clay and I said, that, at our last public art meeting, I talked about my fantasy and my fantasy is benches. And when you think about, and Clay actually mentioned JFK Drive in San Francisco, the old hot dogs, they've done JFK Drive through that area that they've just opened is full of abstract and interesting different art
Hmm.
that is all movable. Sea level rise, whatever. If we put benches out at Sierra Point, we can move them. If we put them on Crockett Trail as a loner place because we don't have a budget to do more things out there, we can move them.
The thing about, and I love the idea of benches, and I think it would be interesting to look at that idea, the way that they looked at the hearts in San Francisco.
Yes,
With the
yes.
same process.
Yeah.
That would be the same thing where,
Different
you
artists.
put out,
Yep.
you put out a call for artists
Yep.
to create a bench.
Mhm.
And you select, and.
Chico has that, City Chico, all of them are different, they're all the
All
benches
different, yeah.
throughout, they're all.
And-
Centuries, I think.
So we can look that up.
It's,
And-
but I think that's an artist, yeah, but that's not a community thing, that's.
No, that's an art.
That's an art
But
project.
the mailbox is a
Although
community
it
thing.
could
That's-
be,
Yes. and
it could
chalk
be a
art is
community thing. It could have some artists in our community could
Oh,
do.
that's not, yeah, I'm just saying it's not like everybody show up with a
Professional.
paintbrush.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
That's what I'm
no,
saying.
you're right. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
Be an art.
Yeah, they, I mean, it's similar to like the
Like
hydrants,
the
like
fire
they submit a
hydrant.
design, the
It
committee
should be-
determines.
The key word here is curation. It should be curated.
Yeah, right.
Well, Deanna Washington's
Yes.
bench that she did
Yeah.
up on Humboldt is absolutely
Very
stunning.
nice.
Right, but
Has anybody
Deanna,
said that
of
in the-
course, would put in a proposal
She
as
does.
an artist and get
Yeah.
paid for it. That's
Yes.
my point.
Right.
Well, while we're talking about Deanna Washington, she also has the amazing fence. So
Yeah.
you could do a fence too, besides the mailbox. I mean, you could, if you want, there's different, somebody can make a mural on their fence. Those,
Well,
all
that's very
kinds of,
personal.
right, no.
Well, I think that this speaks to something where we're talking about dimensions of art, right?
Yeah.
And to me, we have, like, for those who are around when Sangamo introduced their piece, that's a $200,000 sculpture that's there forever and it's huge. And that's one dimension of public art. And then you have more of like the guerrilla style, which is graffiti, or it's the hydrants, or it's mailboxes, something that's smaller and just out, you encounter it, and they all have different budgets. And so I think that if we're layering different dimensions of art, everything from something that a community member can make that's becomes part of our art scene in Brisbane, to hiring an artist to do something for $300,000, to have that dimension of art, I think is really important.
I think
Yes.
your idea of the surprise art is also a very important part of that. And walking up visitation and suddenly there's a bronze squirrel poking around from a light pole or something, or something in the ground, or something, like how everybody loves the raccoon in the park. And, everybody loves that raccoon.
Yeah.
Could I,
Okay, go ahead, Lisa.
under this umbrella, I'd like to bring something that I mentioned to Noreen at our last Park and Rec meeting, was that a long time ago, probably 3 years ago, before COVID, and before I was ever on Park and Rec committee, I was actually hired to do what I consider an art project that never happened because COVID, and it was funded, everything was ready to go, and then it just didn't happen. But I think it's a project that we could bring to this committee, not me doing it, because I'm stepping off of it, because I don't think it's ethical. But the sculptures at Firth Park, we have that helix sculpture and we have the turtle. And they're old cement, beloved decrepit pieces of cement. And I was actually hired to paint them, to make them artistic and paint them, which they're great. They're fabulous shapes. And so I would like to bring that, which is part of our parks, but it needs attention. It needs the structures themselves need fixing before they can be painted. And I've actually done a lot of work designing like what could go on them, but I'm willing to not do that, but put it out there to possibly have Deanna, repaint those things to where they're really beautiful, and I don't know what we do. Like that's a project.
Do an RFP. Yeah.
That's a great small.
That could be
project to kick off.
fixing
Yeah,
all of it.
yeah, I think we have a few small projects and we should put
That's a
them
good
down
idea.
for discussion.
Mhm.
I think there are still two different things, though, just to be clear. There's the project that we would look at, which is mailboxes, which is community involvement.
Community building, yeah.
And then there's an idea of an exhibit, which I think would be part of a time to have the community come in, see exhibit and be able to give feedback on the master plan and a way to involve them. And
Yeah.
then we have what would have to come out, I feel anyway, as RFPs,
Yeah. That would have to be
which is the stuff in Bird Park
The benches.
and the benches. And that may come later, closer to when we working with the master.
Well,
plan.
listen, First Park is a mess right now.
Yeah.
And
More
the
trees.
figuring out what's happening with those
Right.
sculptures is gonna probably,
I
We
gotta
gotta
know
do
where
a
they
lot of
are.
other
They're
things
buried under
to
trees.
totally revamp that park
But
now.
I'm just saying, I think,
But yeah.
when we throw these things out, we have to remember there's community with not needing an RFP, which is an event
Yes,
for
yes.
participation.
Well, the
And-
chalk art too, that's probably more of an event thing,
Could
right?
be, yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you need an
Yeah,
RFP, I don't know.
But
Probably.
probably not, if it's a
No.
community.
Community.
Well,
I don't
and we
know.
need someone to photograph them, Tom.
I mean, I'm just saying, when you start to look at chalk art, we might want to think about it. But I'm not, if we're gonna put a.
But I think these are all projects
But
that are all
To talk about.
doable, that don't really require a master plan, that these are things that we can work on. I know you mentioned something at the last meeting. You had a dream. Do you remember? You told me, I haven't forgotten what your idea was to bring to this town.
On the spot.
Oh, the film festival, yeah, I mean, it requires, is that in an event, or is that art?
Yeah.
We were talking about an event. But I'd have to steal all Madison's ideas and successes for that. But the one conversation at our retreat was to do a children's event, a film festival for kids. To start with, and then maybe
Yeah.
that's coincide with.
I think that fits into the parameters of, education fits into the parameters of public arts, so why not?
Yeah. Yep.
That's part of, that sort of fits all kinds of bills. It's
It's
kids.
definitely art,
And education.
and it's
Yeah.
definitely an event.
What I was thinking as we're talking about this was what South San Francisco talked about, low hanging fruit.
Yeah.
We're not talking about monumental art right at this stage, but it doesn't hurt to pick some of that low hanging fruit.
Yeah.
Just to get some action and some excitement about art. I think that's always worthy.
And I think that when you have something that is like that, when you're looking at spending $250,000 on a piece of art, then maybe, or revamping the whole back of the bathrooms at the park, then maybe that's such a substantial enough project that you want the master plan in place. I can
That's what I mean.
understand that.
Yes,
But
yes.
to have these smaller things where maybe the overall
But
budget
not
is
the benches.
15,000 or less, then that I think you can do in the interim.
Well,
Yeah,
it
that's
is the
great.
question, that we brought up to South San Francisco. They don't still have their master plan, but boy, do they have a lot of artwork. And the question that I asked was, so did you sit on your hands and do nothing
Right.
until we have a master plan? Nobody said, yes, sit on your hands and do nothing. You do things. And yes, we will make mistakes, and people get over the fact that there is nothing that is perfect. And we need to do stuff.
Well, what they did was they did the gallery and they did the utility
Yeah,
boxes and they did
That's what I'm
shows. So, so that's what I figured.
That's
We
what
need
you
to
talked
put that.
about.
We need
Yeah.
to put that on the agenda so we can still keep on talking those things that we can do.
So we'll focus on the low hanging fruit.
So any more
Low hanging
ideas?
fruit.
Any more ideas?
We'll just call it low hanging fruit.
Yeah.
I actually have that on my.
Sounds
Okay.
happy.
All right. And do we have any community feedback on this particular item? G?
We do, but it'll all fall under public comments. I'm not gonna read it and I'll.
Yeah, I
post it on-
did.
I want
Yeah.
public comments on that there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do get the public.
But this,
comment.
yeah, I don't know if our attendee has any comments. I haven't received any additional anything during the meeting at this time.
Okay,
Seeing no
so
hand raised.
under, okay, so public comment on
I
that?
have
Were
a
you,
public comment.
oh, you do?
Yes, I do.
Oh.
I want to put out to you guys that on April 16th, we have two OB winners. Who is one's a director and an actress, as well as a writer who will be performing Dark Days and a Black Dog up at Mission Blue on a Sunday at 4:30.
Oh,
Sorry,
$10.
what day?
Sunday, April 16th. The show's about 15 minutes. It's spoken word, it's stories, and it's book is written by Emily Keeler, who is a choreographer, a very well-known international National Endowment of the Arts recipient. Andrea Snow, who has worked with the San Francisco Mime Troupe and is an OB winner, and it's directed by Jael Weissman, who is also an OB winner. And I think that this is going to be an amazing experience, and we're only showing, it's very intimate. There are 40 people.
Tickets are $10.
Tickets are $10.
with wine.
Hey,
It does?
And you get your tickets at www.Brisbane Dance Workshop. Click on tickets.
And proceeds benefit Brisbane
pro-
Dance Workshop.
Yes,
Okay, I'm glad
Wow.
you explained it. I thought it was just somebody reading a book.
no. it's-
I didn't know what it
I mean,
was. I'm
she
like,
is
why am I gonna go
seated
pay
and
$10
she is
for
reading.
something?
I explained
But
it all.
she's an
Malou.
actress, and I think
I guess I
she-
didn't read that article. I probably didn't read that article.
It's the business
Thank you.
bulletin.
Thank you.
I
Um,
didn't read
This
the
is not a
bulletin.
children's show. The content is not for children.
April 16th, okay.
Even better.
uh-huh.
Exactly.
And then we also received public comment today, March 20th, from Michael Barnes, and I will post that on the our site tomorrow.
All right, so we're adjourned.
The next meeting is, we're gonna, April 17th, 2023 at 4:30.
And we will have new committee members.
And at this time, I would like to say goodbye to everybody and thank you. It's been wonderful and an honor to serve.
I quit.
Been an honor to serve, but
No.
my time has come, so
I'm joking.
let somebody else.
So do we
anyways.
need to agendize a new chair,
Yes,
election of a
yes.
new chair?
Yes.
Mhm.
No.
Correct.
A new chair and vice chair, you know.
New
It's been a
chair.
pleasure to be the chair.
Amazing
So I was a
chair.
little
Thank you
rusty,
so much.
a little rusty in the beginning, but
great.
it took me a while to get my feelings. So anyhow,
Really appreciate it.
you're welcome.
It'll be a lot easier on roll call now. But- Yeah.
Tough daughter.
All right, at this time, we'll adjourn the meeting.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, Lisa.
Bye.
All right.